Today's lineup on Chin Music, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com, former Twins star and former Twins broadcaster Roy Smalley, LaVelle Neal III, baseball guru and columnist at the Star Tribune. I'm Jim Souhan from TalkNorth.com and the Star Tribune. This is TalkNorth.com, and we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We're presented to you by Onyx Maps. Thanks to all of our sponsors, producers, everybody at TalkNorth.com who makes all this possible. We do appreciate it. We have stuff to talk about. You gentlemen were at Twinsfest this weekend. Dick Bremer goes into the Twins Hall of Fame, and we have a trade to talk about. Let's start with the trade. LaVelle, break it down for us.
Yeah, Edward Julien and Pearson Knoll, who, got a cup of coffee with the Twins late last year, to Colorado, for a pitching prospect who put up impressive numbers in A-ball, but missed all of last year because of Tommy John surgery. The surgery took place in March of 2025. And so it would appear that he would be close to being available, this year, early this year. And so we can get an idea of what he has. So, it's unfortunate it's come to this, because I think when we saw Julien first come up, we saw a guy who had pop in his bat, had a nice swing, could drive the ball well to the opposite field, took a hell of a lot of strikes and wouldn't pull the trigger. A lot of 3-2, called strike threes on him, kind of Robbie Grossman-ish in that regard. But man, I thought he was going to be a dude. I did. I thought, especially when in the 2023 postseason, he hit the opposite field home run in the series against Houston. I think it tied the game at the time. And I was like, all right, this guy is going to be a leadoff hitter for years to come. He's going to be a 25, a 30 home run hitter. And defense be damned with him. As it turned out, he cratered back. If he got in a hole, he could not come up, get out of. And so he was out of options. He was going to stay on the roster. He likely was not going to make the team. He was behind Luke Keeschel, Jim Souhan's favorite hitter, and Cody Clemens. So they moved him on to Colorado, and they got a pitcher named Jace Kaminska, who was a 10th round pick in 2023 out of Nebraska, Big Ten guy. So it looks like he throws a little hard. It looks like he's got good stuff, but I don't know if he's a starter or a reliever right now, coming out of Tommy John surgery. So we just have to wait and see. But the Twins got something for Julien, and they moved on from him.
Well, I want to point out that, LaVelle, you and I both looked at the way that, oh my God, my dog's going nuts. I want to give Roy credit for absolutely, nailing the fact that when we thought Julien had the building blocks to be a good hitter, you always saw the flaws, Roy.
Yeah, I feel bad, and I'm for Eddie, and I hope that this new scenario will kind of rekindle him. He's a good kid, and he has talent, and I hope he figures it out. But yeah, you know me, I'm a mechanics guy. When I look at swings, I look at some of the things that Eddie was unable to do. One was as well as he hit the ball long to the opposite field, and as good an eye he had the plate, which got him to two strikes a lot. He was not a good two-strike hitter, and the reason for that is because he had a long, low to high swing, and he could catch up with the ball up in the strike zone and hit it in the air to the opposite field. But he couldn't develop a two-strike approach where he could wait on the ball a long time, slap the ball to left, and then be able to hit off-speed stuff with two strikes. And to LaVelle's point, so much of the time, two strikes, whether it was 3-2 or any other count with two strikes, change up down the middle would absolutely buckle him. He would just, he couldn't react, which means he was just dead on the fastball. Couldn't react to a two-strike curveball, meaning he was dead on the fastball. And when you're dead on the fastball, when you're so focused on hitting the fastball with two strikes, that means you have no confidence, no ability to wait on the ball longer and be comfortable hitting it to left field so that you could hit the other stuff. And I just looked at that at the big end of his bat, moving low to high through the hitting zone. I thought, you know what, he's not going to be able to catch up with enough fastballs, and it's going to be on his mind, and he won't be able to hit the off-speed stuff. So, I mean, that's what I saw. I was hoping I was wrong. I was hoping he'd figure it out, and he hasn't yet. Maybe a new scenario will, get him to figure it out. I did look up the stats like LaVelle did with on Kaminska, and it's intriguing. I mean, it's only A ball, in the California League. But his walks and hits to innings pitched, it was really, really good at 1.01 or 1.1, something like that, which is outstanding. And you say, okay, it's only A ball, but most guys go to A ball and they're all over the place, wild, and they don't have that kind of number as a young pitcher, especially a young pitcher that struck out, way more than one guy an inning. So to LaVelle's point, he must have either a really good arm or he's got a put away pitch of some kind. But in the meantime, the stats say he walked a guy every 7 innings he pitched, and he struck out 1.5 guys an inning. That's pretty doggone good for a guy starting out in professional baseball. So who knows what it'll turn out to be? But I would say, you get a guy with those stats, and you go, hey, I can't wait for him to be healthy and start pitching, somewhere else, and let's see what we got.
It's you just made me flash on something. And that is when the Twins kind of turned it around early 2000s, 2001 to be specific, after years of 8 straight losing seasons. And some of them just where they weren't even trying to contend. What we started seeing was Terry Ryan do deals for people you'd never heard of. And then they ended up being David Ortiz and Joe Mays and Johan Santana and Joe Nathan, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these deals don't look like much when they first come out, but that's what this regime needs to do. If they're not going to spend money, they need to start finding some of those deals, and they're very hard. They're very hard to pull off, and they're very hard to project.
That's really true. You really don't know about an A-ball pitcher. I mean, you don't know anything at all. You could look at his arm. You can look at his velocity and project that to the big leagues. And you can say, well, what secondary pitches does he have? How long will it be till those work in the big leagues to complement the slider? You can have some ideas about that, but you never really know. And so what I look at, is just the stats that I mentioned. You're looking for something that would play in the big leagues, and one WHIP, one walks to hits inning pitch ratio, will always play in the big leagues. And to complement that with, what that means is, if you dive in, just what I said, you strike out 1.5 guys an inning and you walk one every 7. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, good point. And good point about Jim about the Twins trying to make trades. Terry Ryan kept doing it too. I mean, not everything worked. I mean, traded Denard Span to Washington for Alex Meyer.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not nobody bats 1,000, but he had a stretch there from late 19 from the time he traded Knobloch through the time he traded for Shannon Stewart. I don't know if anybody's ever had a better close to decade of just great deal after great deal.
I agree. And Falvey has shown that ability because. Getting Jake Odorizzi, who was named to an All-Star team for Jermaine Palacios, who never played in the majors. That's not bad at all, especially when you're dealing with the Rays usually fleece teams that they deal with. And that was when it didn't go their way. I mean, my God, that Chris Archer trade to Pittsburgh, that was just horrible with Tyler Glass. Yeah. Now, are you kidding me? And then, Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan. I mean, a half season of Nelson Cruz for what they've got from Joe Ryan. That's a big win. And you got to keep making those type of moves, but it gets tougher and tougher because teams value their prospects more because they're controllable, for 6 years. And it's hard to get those teams to give up those type of players, but you got to try.
They value them, for the reason you said it, but also because the salaries have gotten so crazy. and that's hard for me as a player to call it crazy, but I mean, they're significant enough whereby, if you've got rather than trade, signing a big free agent, say, let's hope these guys make it, right? I mean, you can see where that's going. But I will just make one other comment about Terry Ryan and his trades. That Alex Meyer trade should have worked. That arm should have been a great big league pitcher. That was all the right things lined up for that. Trade Denard, as much as I love Denard Span, you trade him for that arm when the Twins needed pitching, and you watch him pitch. And the first time I saw him pitch, I think it was down in Houston. They were down in Houston, and the Houston hitters looked totally befuddled. But it didn't matter because he kept throwing fastballs and sliders to the screen. He never ever got command of the stuff that he had. But that was big league stuff, and I had great expectation that would turn out to be a really good trade. And it, sometimes you don't know about a guy. I mean, if you can't throw it over, you can't throw it over.
Yep.
And Nationals fans were upset at that trade because they envisioned Meyer and Steven Strasburg to be the pillars of the rotation for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, Meyer, he was a really intriguing prospect, and I was kind of surprised with the stuff he had that he didn't make it work. I really thought he would. Now let's talk about Twinsfest, including Dick Bremer's honor. First, we want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. The new year's here. While you're promising to hit the gym, drink more water, and limit screen time, your home has its own resolutions, like tackling the broken water heater, leaky faucets, and sketchy wiring. Don't let your year start with repair chaos. Have Aquarius do the fix in 2026 and get $98 off any repair. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And Chin Music is presented to you by Onyx Maps. That's Onyx Hunt and Onyx Fish. Reminder, hey, if you're an ice fisher person or if you're waiting for the ice to melt, just realize that the Onyx Fish app can help you find the next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, keep potential. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake by lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game. All right, let's start with Dick Bremer. I talked to him yesterday for a column I'm working on. Kind of endearing that he spends a lot of his time now listening to his son, who's broadcasting in the Southern League, the Class 2A Pensacola Blue Wahoos. And he got a call from Rod Carew over the holidays, congratulating him, welcoming him to the club. It had to be a very difficult transition for Dick to go from, being one of the faces of the entire franchise to not. And I kind of felt for him. I'm glad to see him get this honor. And it was good to hear that when I talked to him, he was in pretty good spirits. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Well, I certainly do. I worked alongside Dick for a lot of years, and we did a lot of games together. And I always felt like our rapport was really good. I felt like we had some really, really good moments together, and that was really fun for me. The consummate professional. I mean, he just. He is about as good in broadcasting baseball as anybody in his era, and so to be a part of just a little part of experiencing close hand what he was able to do, it was an honor for me, and it's so well deserved for Dick that he's in the Twins Hall of Fame. Were he not to be, it would be like Belichick not going into the NFL Hall.
Now I will say, there's a difference between Dick Bremer and Bill Belichick. I hate to go out on a limb like that, but there's a difference.
Yeah, well, we all know the difference. You don't have to. You don't have to mention.
Yeah, one of those guys cheated a lot.
In a lot of levels.
Yeah. So I don't think Dick Bremer ever cheated. So I'm more in favor of Dick Bremer than Bill Belichick. Let's go with that.
No. It was a well-deserved and foregone conclusion he's going to get into the Twins Hall of Fame. And, my early days in the beat, was I was pretty much mesmerized about the phenomenon that was created when Bert started circling things, and how, Dick became a straight man on that bit and ended up taking off. The Circle Me Bert thing kind of elevated Dick into, this national acceptance, man. So, he would sit in with us during pre-games. Used to annoy me at first, but, his questions were reasonable. And, he tried to be thorough and complete with his job, and you can't hold that against him. So congratulations. Happy for him. I enjoyed reading his book that he published a couple years ago. I thought it was well done. I liked the concept. So, I look forward to his speech, at the Hall of Fame induction. We got part of it a couple years ago when he was got the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Herb Carneiro Lifetime Achievement Award at the Diamond Awards banquet. So he gets to write another speech now for the Twins Hall of Fame.
Good stuff.
I've got one. I'm going to tell you one quick story from the booth. That was one of my favorite moments, just because of the way Dick reacted. But we were talking one time. I don't know if the game was out of hand, or whether it was just kind of the conversation sometimes we would have during the ebb and flow of the game. But somebody hit a ball down the line. It was foul, and it got Dick going. He says, "I don't understand." And maybe someone hit it out of the ballpark, but foul to the, down left field line, left to the, foul pole. And he's not understand why it's called the foul line, the foul pole. I mean, it's fair if it hits it. It should be the fair pole. And so I said, no, it's foul pole. And a foul line, what that means is this is the delineation line. Anything that's to the outside of this is a foul ball. So this will be the demarcation for, what is fair and foul. This is the foul line, because outside of this it's a foul ball. So we went back and forth. He's going, that doesn't make any sense. It should be the fair line, blah blah blah. So we went on for quite a while, and then now we just got done with talking about that. And somebody hits a line drive down the left field line that lands in foul territory. And Dick says that, it's a line drive down the left field line and it's foul. And I said, yep, just outside the fair line. And he just cracked up on the air. He just laughed and laughed. And that's the kind of guy he was. He could get onto something and worry it like a dog on a bone, or he could be a little corny sometimes, and with some of the things that he wanted to talk about. But boy, did he get a kick out of something when it was funny and at somewhat at his expense. So that we laughed a long time about that one.
Good stuff. Tell me what Twinsfest is like. I ended up having some things come up. I expected to be over there. I ended up not going over there. So LaVelle, tell me, what you learned or what you saw over there, and Roy, do the same, please.
It was pretty interesting, Jim, because, there was a procession of players being brought out to talk to us. Bailey Ober, that new, switch hitter Carantini, a couple other guys were brought out to talk, and that was fine. But because of the shooting, that kind of took over a lot of things, because Dustin Morris, there's a text string with all the professional sports teams in town, and they share notes when stuff like this goes down. And so they all were talking about how they're going to release some information when Renee Good was shot, and then when Freddie was shot on Saturday. They were all in negotiations and asking, what were you guys going to do? And the Twins made a decision to close Twinsfest early. The league decided to postpone the Wolves game. So we're hearing all the, back and forth and some of the developments with that going on. Meanwhile, Tom Polat's having a town hall meeting for former season ticket holders. And he made a speech at the beginning, and then he opened the floor to questions. The first person grabs the microphone, takes out his phone, hits record, holds it up and goes, someone died today. What did you think about
Oh,
that?
no.
That's really threw Tom off right at the beginning as far as trying to come up with an answer. I think he said, I don't want to pick sides here. I'm sure he got kind of caught off guard with the whole thing. So it was kind of just a weird vibe from that point on, just because of the tragedy that occurred in Minneapolis. In terms of baseball, I did learn from one person there that they are going into the season with some money in the bank, and if all the things they were trying to tell me over the weekend were come to true, because I heard 3 people tell me they think that Cole Sands could be a decent closer, that the bullpen's not going to be as bad as people think, and that the division is definitely winnable because there's not really a strong team. So they're going into this thinking that we're going to be a little bit better than a year ago. And if we're hovering around first place come July 1st, then we're going to push. So I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. I'm skeptical just because while I think they're going to put together a very capable starting rotation, the other 2 areas, offense and bullpen, still worry me. So all that was going on at Twinsfest on Saturday.
The one thing that I will say about Twinsfest for me, from my perspective, is that, man, do the 87 brothers still love each other. I was fortunate enough to be put in a little autograph session line with Tim Laudner and Senior Smoke and Bert Blyleven. And we had a blast. It was so much fun being with them. We started off in the staging room, which was the visitors clubhouse. And Laudner and I were sitting around. Trevor Plouffe was there. He sat down with us. Great to see him. And then Baron Garrett came over, sat down with us. And Laudner and I started telling stories about, different things everywhere from some hilarious things that Kent Herbeck, said over the years to some Tom Kelly things. And then someone brought up Disco Dan, and I said, how he got that nickname, and nobody heard the story. So I told him that one when Disco and I were teammates with Gene Mock as the manager. And so we just laughed and then went down and continued ribbing each other and laughing in front of all the fans that came by and had us sign things. I had an absolute blast with my boys.
Yeah, I saw Laudner, and I said, thanks again for helping me with the book, because he gave me a great story about Herbeck. And Laudner's like, what story was that? And I said, well, it's the game you guys were in Chicago, and a half an hour before game time, Herbeck had found a bowl of Oreo cookies. So you were sitting on the floor of the
Timmy told me that story when we were sitting there signing.
He's devoutly these Oreo cookies. Tom Kelly's walking out of his office to go to the field. And he was like, Herbie, what the bleep are you doing? And Herbeck goes, I'm hungry. And if you want 2 hits out of me, you'll keep right on walking.
So great. But you know what? The other thing, LaVelle, about that wasn't just a little bowl of cookies. That was in Chicago. The clubhouse man had this giant bowl of Oreos. It's just out for everybody to, go by and grab 1 or 2. As they, if they wanted a little sugar boost or something. Herbeck was sitting on the floor in his locker with the whole, he grabbed the whole bowl and was sitting in front of his locker with it between his legs. He was on a mission. So
I thank Laudner for that. And Laudner's like, I got more than that. If you want to keep talking. I said, oh man, okay, maybe some other day.
Next week, let's talk about what this team's going to do at first base. Let's talk about the Disco Dan story. I think you've told me that, but I think I've forgotten it. I want to hear the answer. And we'll break down the roster a little bit more, and there'll probably be a little bit more news coming out of the Twins. For today, let's go to our Booze and Blues segment. You gentlemen wanted to talk about Nina Simone. Let's start with Roy. Okay, Roy, guess what, LaVelle? We're having a few technical difficulties. Roy will be right back. Why don't you start with Nina Simone's story?
Well, once again, with Nina Simone, it's one of those deals where, growing up, my dad had a record collection. I've talked about this before, but he listened to Maynard Ferguson and some old jazz greats, and Bob James, who Roy has met. Big surprise.
I met Bob James.
Yep. Nina Simone is in that group.
Wow.
He had Nina Simone albums. So, Saturday mornings when we're cleaning up the house and we had that huge console stereo, the one that's like 6 feet long and 4 feet high, and you raise the top and you put the record down and everything and play it. So he had one of those. And so he would put these records on, and Nina Simone was one of those albums. So I used to hear her sing while we were tasked with cleaning up the house every Saturday morning. That was the ritual in the Neal household. So part of the soundtrack of my young life was listening to artists like Nina Simone, who had a wonderful voice and sang some wonderful songs. So that is my Nina Simone experience.
I've listened to Nina Simone, but you sound like you know much more about her than I do. What 2 or 3 songs should people go listen to if they want to check her out?
You were going to ask me that, and I was trying to remember the one album that Dad had that he used to play all the time. I believe it was I think it was just a Nina Simone Sings the Blues album. I think that was the one. It was like, Here Comes the Sun. The sun was like a basic song, but it was really, I Put a Spell on You. That was the one he really liked. He would sing that song when it came on. And, the other one was, let's see, To Love Somebody. That was another one of her hit songs. So those 2, I Put a Spell on You, especially that album was one, that was definitely on our record player, growing up.
Cool. All right. I think we lost Roy. Of course, Roy does this from work. He might have had something come up where he needed to go to it. We'll get his thoughts next week. For this week, thanks to Roy, thanks to LaVelle, thanks to our sponsors and our producers at TalkNorth.com, Davide and Alex. We appreciate it. We'll be back with more Twins news and insights next week. Again, I want to talk about first base and how this lineup and bullpen might come together.